Hey everybody, welcome to the Dog Owners Podcast. My name is Vinny and this is Brent. Today we're going to break down nervous and anxious dogs. So if you're a dog owner with a dog who's anxious, nervous, fearful, everything you need to know is going to be in this podcast. Brent, take it away.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Brent with the Dog Owners Podcast. And today, as Vinny said, we're going to be talking about nervous dogs. Now, both me and Vinny have been training into the double digits of our career. Getting old now. And, whether it was working like when the big rescue boom, and there was a lot of rescue dogs that were coming in when, the mentality was adopt, don't shop, or during COVID, where we saw a lot of dogs coming in under socialized, nervous, backyard breeding, all these different things, to the modern day, right? And we start, and so this idea of nervous dogs, they've existed since the beginning of time, nervous dogs. And so today in this episode, what we want to do is we want to kind of break down different ways to think about nervous dogs. If you adopted a nervous dog, if you currently have a nervous dog, and just kind of help you guys understand maybe things that we can do to help build their confidence, to help try to give this dog the best life that they can possibly have. Because I will start by just saying, especially if you're an animal lover, if you have a big heart for animals, a nervous dog, I would actually assume, can sometimes be the hardest dog to train, because on one hand, it's like, this dog is scared. I want to make this dog feel comfortable. I want to make this dog confident. So I'm going to soothe them and support them. But on another hand, there is an aspect we're going to talk about in this episode where we talk about how sometimes not guiding our dogs through little bits of stress at a time can actually keep them nervous and keep them scared. Sometimes, it's within ourselves. We have to be good at balancing comforting our dogs and supporting our dogs with also slowly having a progression plan to push them and build their confidence.
Brian, and I fear that too much of the marketing is almost like a bubble boy mentality of where we could never put these dogs in stress. And then the only stress that these nervous dogs or fearful dogs see is the stress that shuts them down, because we never taught them how to deal with a small amount of stress. And it's like stress inoculation is a small little ladder that they have to go through. If I can't deal with a minor amount of stress, I'm always going to fail when a big moment comes up. And there's no amount of love, or there's no amount of pets or kisses or treats that are going to get your dog over their fear or nervousness. That's the hard part. Is it's like, all I want to do is sit here and tell this dog, hey, I love you. The world's fine. You're going to be okay. But that just doesn't work. So let's talk about some things that do work. And this is, Brent, I will tell you, this is my favorite. When I started dog training, this was my least favorite type of dog to train. Like, bar none. I hated it, right? Now I'll tell you, this is my favorite type of dog to train. I love nervous dogs. Like, there's nothing I like more than going into a house with a dog who is so afraid they won't come up to me, because I want to show this owner that it is possible. And I'll tell you a little bit of inspiration about my wanting to do this topic today, Brent, is, the past 2 days I've had dogs who cannot make new friends. And when you lay out a game plan for owners and it's crazy that some dog body language, which I perceive as common sense, is just not common, right? It's not. So we have to talk about that as well. And when you explain it to the owners, they go, oh my God, I never even knew that's what that meant. So I'm excited to hear your take on it. I'm excited to give you some of my take as well.
Yeah.
Where do you want to start this shindig at?
So I think it's important for us to understand or break a couple myths, right? Here's the most common myth. Okay. All dogs who are insecure or nervous were at some point mistreated. But here's the big thing is, there are huge genetic components to a dog's temperament, right? So, just like it works with kids, like if my mom had blue eyes and my dad had hazel eyes, well, there's like a chance I might get blue or hazel eyes. You know what I mean? Like, traits get passed down from generations to generation. And some breeds have a higher level of what's the word? They're more threat sensitive, right? Like they're more alert. Some breeds they're supposed to look for micro expressions to be able to control animals, right? So you have some breeds that kind of lead more towards, and it's not breed related because it is a genetic roll of the dice, but let's just talk genetics. There are some dogs that lean more towards negative emotions or neurotic emotions. So the negative emotions that I would categorize would be, I am, I can suffer from panic easier than other dogs, fear or rage, right? So this means I can get volatile a little quicker than other dogs. I can lose my shit, my temper. I can get scared of things and might want to fight or flight them, right? Or I can get panicked, and panic ultimately is if I don't feel safe when I don't feel connected to an inner circle,
Uh-huh.
right? So like those are dogs who suffer from separation anxiety, or they're more codependent. Those are the dogs that are more predisposed to like get attached to an individual, versus a dog who's fearful might be like a dog who hears a noise and goes, "What is that?" You know, and a dog who is rageful, or a dog who has a propensity to lose their temper, is going to be a dog who's going to, it's a lot easier for them to go from 0 to 100, to become reactive, to get into a fight, things like that, right? And so when we think of negative emotions are necessary in nature. Like those are
How
the
you
things
survive.
that's how we survive. They protect us from danger. They keep us strong. And here's one thing I always tell my clients is dogs are still wired to think it's the wild, right? They don't know that they live in a beautiful, 2-story house. They don't care that you make all this money and that they're super safe and eat the best food, because if they're psychologically not fulfilled, and we'll talk about what that means a little later, then they're going to feel that they are still in the wild, right? So negative emotions they are more genetically predisposed to feel negative feelings easier than maybe other dogs. Now, on that same coin, you have dogs who are genetically predisposed to feel positive emotions a lot easier than other dogs. So curiosity, playfulness, social interests, like all those things that are all about building relationships and connections, those emotions are wired differently in some dogs as well. Now, there are also environmental components other than genetics. So there are so many times I see a dog who wants to play, who wants to be curious, but just kind of like a kid who's never swam before, they're scared to jump in the deep end of the pool. You see the dog, they come up and they sniff you and then they back off, and they come up and they sniff you and they want to play with you, but then they're like, just kidding, And so you see that sometimes there are dogs who lack life experience, right? And
Yes.
one of the biggest things for people to understand is typically a nervous dog, it's not so much something that's happened to them when they were younger, it's what hasn't happened to them. Make sense? So a lot of dogs suffer from neglect. A lot of dogs suffer from lack of socialization. A lot of dogs might have a genetic predisposition which make them feel fear and negative emotions easier. But, and guys, and this is just me because I like to believe in goodness in the world. I get clients sometimes. They'll get an 8-week-old puppy, and at 12 weeks, the dog is scared out of its mind, right? And they will come to me and they'll say, Brent, I think my puppy was abused. And I personally like to believe that puppies aren't being beaten at age 8 weeks by random strangers, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that tells me a little bit more. Either the dog is emotionally not regulated properly, or the dog might genetically lean more towards negative emotions. And so when I think about it like that, it's so easy for us to come up with a story of abuse or mistreatment when we see nervous dogs. And I will tell you guys, as a dog trainer, that is probably a biggest sabotage to the dog's progress.
Yes. 100%. And what we tend to do is we get fixated on an imaginary story instead of going, what do I need to do now in order to fix this problem?
Yeah.
Because it is so much easier just to go, yeah, this happened to him and it's so sad,
Yeah.
versus I have no idea what happened, but this is what I can do in order to fix XYZ. And as much as a role as genetics play, those first few months that you get your dog, can change the trajectory of your dog's life drastically. And oftentimes when we get this nervous dog and we cater to them too much and we don't expose them slowly to the right amount of stress and to the right things, we set that dog back for life. And this also comes back into an important play, which Brent and I will go into the future. Something we're going to go over later is getting a dog from a breeder or from a rescue. And one of the hardest things now is that breeding has become big money business, right? Like there's
Well,
no ifs,
so
ands, or
has
buts about it.
rescue, but we'll get into that.
We will dip our toes into the deep end on that one as well. Unfortunately, it's worse for dogs. Now, this is a terrible, terrible story, Brent. When I bought my first house, I went on a walk with my coonhound, and this old man came out, and he was telling me he used to breed beagles. And we're going down a weird path here, but I'll bring it right back.
Okay, cool.
And he used to breed beagles. And this was the first time in my life, I'm like 25, 26, that I heard the word culling, right? Yeah, we used to cull beagles. And I said, what is
What
that?
does that mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't even know what it means.
Well, they would at 6 and 8 weeks put these beagles through tests. And if the beagles lacked any of the properties that they wanted, they would kill these puppies. Now that's fucked up. That's a terrible thing to do. We can all agree. And I was almost like shocked that someone would actually say that. And then upon research, this was just common practice, by the way. Like
Wow.
this is not uncommon practice. And when I say common, it's not like every mom and pop was doing this, but they were only breeding dogs with the traits that they wanted. Now, this could be easily achieved by just saying, okay, we're just never going to breed dog 3, 4, 5 in this litter. We'll only breed the dogs that we want. And the reason I bring this up is we are now seeing people breed every anxious dog on the planet just to make some money. And that doesn't help us. And then the same thing happens with rescues is a lot of these dogs are getting put back into rescue, or people just aren't spaying neutering their dogs and let them run amok, and or just being negligent dog owners, not even just not spaying or neutering. But we're dealing with a lot of genetic messes, there's no doubt. But a lot of this can be rectified if we do the right things early on in the dog's life. So it's really difficult for me because I hate using just the dog's genetics, because that becomes another crutch for us to go, well, this dog can't reach his potential because of his genetics. And it's total bullshit.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, yeah, your dog may be genetically weaker than the police dog that you see, but that doesn't mean he can't reach his potential if you do everything right. Yeah, he may be a little bit more sensitive a dog, but he does not have to live this life of fear of everything. And that's my only gripe with the genetic talk, is that I do feel that humans then, and dog trainers too, like we all do it, we tend to use that as a crutch. And I don't want that. So when we talk about genetics, that's simply stating what Brent talked about earlier. They may be more likely to go down the path of negative emotions, and they may be way more sensitive as well, but that doesn't mean they can't overcome stress, fear,
exactly.
etc.
And
Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. And that's important for you guys to know. So like whether you get a puppy or you rescue a puppy, a lot of times people think, okay, my 10-week-old puppy is a little nervous, he'll grow out of it. Or my, 3-month-old rescue is a little weird with men, he'll grow out of it. And then 2 months later, they haven't grown out of it. So it's important for us to remember, if you notice certain things early, your goal is to train against it, right? So if I notice I have a really nervous dog, contact a dog trainer who's competent, who can say, all right, your dog is nervous. Let's work on these protocols so that your dog can we can develop a bridge to the things that he's scared of while he's young, while his brain is still forming. So that way you're not dealing with this problem for 3 years and then have to pay $1 kajillion for behavior modification because your dog bit somebody, right? Like, as much as, even though genetics, on a genetic dial, right? A dial being from 1 to 10, if your dog is a 9 on negative emotions, well, maybe if we start young, we can get the dog to like a 6 or a 7 on negative emotions. He'll never be a 2, but we can move the dial a couple degrees to the left, a couple degrees to the right, right? When we have good training protocol and good raising, but it takes a certain level of awareness at a young age. And yes, I do agree with you. Vinny, that sometimes there's a crutch that happens when people blame just genetics. There's a crutch that happens when people have stories of abuse in their mind.
Yes.
Are there any other crutches?
Brent, I don't know where you get most of your dogs, but I think you're like me. You kind of just collect dogs from
Yeah. I
weird
think I've
places.
gotten most of my dogs from clients. Yeah, clients.
Yeah. But I throughout this episode, I also want to talk about things that I do with my dog because I adopted Crunch. You've probably seen my puppy Crunch. He's that little Mastiff mix. He looks like a Leon Burger. And when I got him, uh, there was three other pups in that litter that came up to Pittsburgh, and Crunch was by far and away the most nervous dog that I've ever owned, and the most nervous dog in that litter. And I remember it was day 2, and I looked at Francesca and I said, "Hey, listen, I do want to tell you something," because we didn't know if we were going to keep him yet, right? We were just fostering. And I told her, I said, "Hey, I want you to know something. You can tell right away that this dog handles stress very poorly, and he is an insecure dog. Okay. Now, if you met him today, you would go, there's no fucking way."
Yeah.
And at month 4, at month 5, at month 6, it would not be uncommon for him to get afraid of just somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's like, okay, well, how do we overcome this then? And this, let's start getting into like, what are some things that you would tell people? First thing that you need to understand is associations are the most important thing for a nervous dog.
Yes.
So, and you can use that to your advantage, or uh, unknowingly that can work against you. So what I mean by that is when I bring in my friends and family, I want my, or random people, I want my dog going, hey, there's a chance that this motherfucker's going to play ball with me, or
Mm-hmm.
there's a chance that this person's going to do XYZ that my dog likes.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, I do not want my dog ever to think, hey, there's a chance that this person's going to lean over top of me and try to grab me right away. So this is where two really big rules would come into play for me. We all have, most dog trainers have this rule of like, ignore your dog when you come home, right? Like, but this, for a nervous dog, it is so important that they become invisible when other people come into your home. And if you can't control the person, like I love my brother, he's one of the greatest people on the planet, but he's a moron sometimes. So like if I had a nervous dog, I would just put my dog away if I couldn't control my variables. And no training will always be better than bad training. So it's okay to put your dogs away and to create that. And we've gone through that cycle a few episodes. We did it in our first episode and in our fourth episode. Uh, Make sure you guys listen to that. If you have a nervous dog, it's super important to regulate their nervous system and to put them on some sort of system. But when you bring people around your nervous dog, the last thing that I want is this person to try to make friends with my dog, right? And we often perceive sniffing as inviting for affection, right? So, like when a nervous dog finally musters up the courage to come up and sniff somebody, and that person reaches down, you just set that dog back because now your dog goes, I knew people were trying to fucking grab me. Like I knew it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I knew
So
you
it's
weren't to be trusted. Yeah.
yes, yes, it's so important for this dog to just come up and sniff. And Brent, when I have clients that have nervous dogs that are going through training, I always tell them, hey, when you bring guests over, sit them at your kitchen table, not your couch. So this way it takes the eyes out of the equation. So the dog can come under the table and come sniff and figure out who this person is without the conflict of that.
Very
Because
smart. Yeah.
the presence of a human staring at a nervous dog puts that dog in a position of, holy fuck. And it's just easier to sit at a table where the dog can come up. And remember, allow the dog to go sniff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like there's no conflict. You're gonna come up and sniff. We're gonna be groovy. But also me just sitting at that table will never get that dog to actually like me. Right? Me sitting at that table ignoring the dog will just give the dog time to find out who I am, where I've been, and so on and so forth. Well, how do I get this dog to eventually like somebody? I'm right now, Brent, as I'm talking, I can already see that I'm going to go down a particular path, a very
Yeah.
narrow path.
Sure.
We'll have to widen this back out to all nervous dogs. But right now, I'm just talking about crunch and or dogs who do not have the courage to greet people, right? Or who are just nervous around people. But we do have to widen this because there's so much more than that.
Yeah.
But for me, I want to be able to control what Crunch loves. So Crunch loves toys, right? Nervous dogs, they have to learn how to play. Some people don't know how to play with their dog. It's super important that I learn how to play and then I control it. So I put windows in my day of when we play and when we don't play. And then I can transfer those items to new people easily and say, hey, listen, maybe we're going to go outside and we're going to create a triangle. I'm going to have his toy. I'm going to give it to you. You're going to throw the toy. He may be a puss and not want to bring it back to you. If he brings it back to me, I'll give it to you. After 5, 6 reps, the dog goes, why am I going to dad? Dad's not throwing me the toy anymore. I just go to this new guy, right? Like he clearly knows how to throw it better.
Mm-hmm.
That is a transfer item is a really easy way for a dog to go, yeah, I can start to trust people more because he does things that I like without conflict, right? Also very important, food is your worst enemy as a transfer item. So if I give Brent food to give to a nervous dog, after the dog's done chewing, he's now put in a predicament of, holy fuck, I'm right in front of this guy 2 inches away and I no longer have food in my mouth. Yeah, there's a chance he stays there for more food. There's also a chance he goes, I'm done eating. Now I'm going to bark and run away. And we've set ourselves up for failure there.
Yep.
And 2 other side notes, and then Brent, I'll pass the ball back. Your body language and the dog's body language are very important. So when you are coaching people on how to interact with your nervous dog, standing facing the dog is always negative. Like that's bad.
Squaring off,
I want to turn my body. I want to gaze away. I could even get down. I want to do anything that is not threatening to this dog. When I say get down, don't get down and face the dog, right? Because now he's like, holy shit. But I want to try to put my body in a way where the dog feels invited to come up to me or up, to them. So those are just some things to keep in mind. And always find, what does my dog really like? Well, maybe my dog likes going hiking. I'll go on hiking with new people. Maybe my dog likes going to this particular park. And always remember this, I will never make a new friend at the dentist office.
Yeah.
Never. Because I hate being there. So my association with the dentist office sucks. So I'm never going to make new friends there because I don't even want to fucking be there myself. If your house is your dentist office for your dog with new people, find your Chuck E. Cheese. I would make friends at Chuck E. Cheese because I want to be there. So maybe it's easier for your dog to meet new people at their Chuck E. Cheese, which could be your backyard, which could be the local park, a green space, the hike, whatever.
Yeah, there are so many cases I work with where the dog is protective of the home and territorial at the home, but super friendly at the dog park because they feel more comfortable or confident, or at the actual park or outside the house. They would never show aggression, So that's really cool. One thing I wanted to kind of tell the audience, there's a model for socialization that I use, and it's called exposure, exploration, then interaction, right? And these are kind of it's a phased approach, right? So
I love this.
If I have a dog who is new to something, and it doesn't matter if the dog's nervous or happy, it's like I'm going to expose them to a new environment, a new situation, a new person. And exposure just means let them be in the presence of it, let them get used to the fact that it's there, let it get used to how it moves, let it get used to stuff, right? So let's play it out. If I have a nervous puppy at the house, first, if I have a guest coming over, I'll bring the puppy out once my guest is settled. I'll let my guest stand up, go over there, go to the bathroom, talk, make noise. And little by little, my dog is just going to be exposed to my guest, right? Then there's exploration. So me as a parent, when I feel that my dog has settled and has actually dropped any guards that they might have, then I can allow them to go sniff and allow them to go smell a knee. And I'll just instruct that person, hey, just ignore him. Just let him be. If he comes to sniff you 5 times, just let him do it. Don't try and touch him. Because what the dog's trying to do is the dog's trying to sense, are you a threat? If do you mean any malice towards me, right? And so a lot of nervous dogs, they want to just kind of probe to say like, hey, are you going to hurt me? Are you not going to hurt me? Are you cool? Are you not cool? Are you stable? Are you not stable? And also what they're trying to do is get a read of intentions on this individual. And so as soon as you go to touch them, you fuck that up, as Vinny said, right? So once you allow the dog to start exploring the item or the person, that's stage 2. Now, once you start seeing your dog relax in those moments, maybe relaxation could be a couple sniffs and then the dog goes over by you and lays down. The dog might do a couple sniffs and then go, wander off. But relaxation just means the dog is no longer the dog's brain is not hijacked by this person being there anymore, right? Then number 3 is the interaction, and that's where we go into some of these trade-off items, right? To Vinny's point, food is a really bad what'd you call it? A trade
Item,
object?
yeah, yeah.
Trade item, trade object. Food gives you a really false positive with dogs, because like dogs will take food from people and then 3 seconds later snap at them, right? So it's I always make the joke. I was like, I'll take money from people I don't like, so that's a false positive, right? If I take your money, it doesn't mean that I like you. It just means I'll take your money because you have something I want, right? So with dogs, I think having toys or having a tug rope or having a ball or something like that, all of that is a lot better because it involves cooperation from the dog in order to do it. So now we're entering this interaction stage, and now we can actually control interactions and guide interactions between my dog and this stranger or this item or object that I'm teaching my dog to interact with.
Can
Go
I add
ahead.
one thing, dude?
Yeah.
And oh Jesus, your model is beautiful. I'm actually going to totally steal that.
Steal it. Yeah. Like
Reword it.
everything else you steal. You're going
I'm
to
going to
brand it
reword
with
it.
say it once. Yeah, I get
Oh,
it.
dude, it's going to be huge.
It's going to
And
be
I
the
will,
biggest. It's going to be just like the puppy cycle.
it'll be the best.
It'll be the best. Anyway, good.
But I love that model, and I think that is brilliant. Going back to why food tends to be a terrible trade object is because there's no objective to it, right? So it's easy for the toy because the dog knows the objective. Like, hey, I retrieved this item. I've been retrieving this item for how many times? The only time I think food could be of something of value is if there was an objective behind it. Hey, my dog knows these skills really well. Ask him these skills, give him food, because now the dog is going, oh, if I achieve this, I'm getting this. So, but this is hard because you have to coach the person on like, hey, if you walk him over there, granted the dog's starting to be comfortable around this person moving. If you walk him over to his bed and ask him to do this, give him food, you take him over here, you give him food, the dog may start to go back into this habitual cycle where he goes, oh yeah, I know these things, I can do these, and I know what I get when I do these. That makes it easier versus just food for this. That's where you start to see the dog starting to back up, right? That's where you start to see, once the dog's eating the food, what the fuck do I do now?
Yes.
Yeah, and I totally agree. That is, I love your model, dude. I really do. I'm just sitting here going, wow, that's a really great model.
I got so many models for you to steal. Don't even worry about it. That's why we're going to do. That's why we're going to do this podcast. And before you know it, Canis and Say It Once will be Canis Say It Once.
Or can you say it once? Or
Can you say
dead?
Or I'll be dead. And you'll be on your island. Yeah. Can you say it once?
That's so funny. Brent, I don't know if you, let's just talk a little bit about, I don't know how often you use markers in your dog training system. If you're doing a lesson and it's just a typical dog who just needs some bullshit, I really don't even get into it because to me, it's a waste of time. And or if I'm going to train somebody who just doesn't care, or maybe they're older and they just can never get it right. I understand it'll make the process easier for the dog. Some of these dogs just don't need it. They're gonna be okay without it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I do find it easier when I'm training nervous dogs. If I use a clicker, I enjoy using a clicker with nervous dogs. It just seems to me to make the process easier. I don't know if you see anything like that. I don't know if you even use clickers ever.
No, I think when it all comes to like marker systems, for me, I have to look at, okay, how many, so here's for the audience. So the guy who made marker training famous became one of my friends. And during a conversation, his name is Michael Ellis. During a conversation, I said, I spend like a whole session on markers. And I said, but what are you supposed to do if you only got 3 sessions because it's a rescue dog or they don't have a big budget to get more sessions? And he goes, well, then don't teach him markers. Duh. he goes, dog training existed way before markers. And then he goes to tell me, but think of it like this, think of it like that. And I think this is insights that I think you're going to agree with, Vinny, where some clients, based on their learning ability, they don't have Like throwing markers into the system is just going to make them more confused. Like they can't
Yes.
even hold the leash properly. So why are we worried about markers, right? But then there are some clients that are like they get it, and then you can say, okay, now if we want to get more specific, we can throw a marker here and a marker there, and we can start teaching them things. But I also do love the use of clickers for nervous dogs because there's no emotion involved into that mark, right? And we can create this neutral sound, like this click of a clicker, to get the dog excited, and it's something we can take anywhere with us, and it's something that's super consistent. So go
To
ahead,
hit a
continue.
dopamine in your pocket. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like that's the benefit is if I ask my dog a simple thing, stop on a leash, sit, go to the bed, whatever it ends up being, and you click and you feed, and once again this dog goes into this habit loop. It does make your training easier with nervous dogs. So when Brent and I talk about markers, we're just talking about conditioning that the clicker means food is coming in, or the word yes means food is coming. I do find it much easier to condition the clicker in these instances because it makes people slower. So when you have to have another thing in your hand, you have to click, and I have to think about what I do next. Versus when people say yes, we always fuck it up, right?
right,
It's just
right,
natural.
right.
But that's just one other thing I would really add into. If I was training a nervous dog from scratch, you should condition your dog to some marker, and I would be open to I know my 14-year ago self is looking at me going, "You're such a fucking loser. You're using a clicker. You don't even know what you're doing, right?"
Yeah.
But it is something that I would highly suggest and recommend. Where do we want to take this conversation from here for nervous dogs?
Well, I think that model for socialization, again, you can start that with puppy. So just to recap, it's exposure, to expose, explore, and interact, right? Or exposure, exploration, interaction, right? And
You
making
couldn't
sure
get a
that
third E in there.
now, I mean, maybe that's what you're gonna do. You're gonna find another E word to make it all the triple E's. Um,
Please.
Triple E's. Is that a language? Triple E's. Um, so so yeah. So when you guys are doing that model, that's the same model I use for adult rescue dogs who are nervous as well, right? The difference is when we socialize dogs prior to 6 months, they're blank slates. Their brain is a little bit more adaptable. They're a little bit more curious. So when people say like you have this socialization window that can close, it's true. Like and the socialization window closes because we lose the natural curiosity of a youthful puppy. We lose kind of like that empty real estate, right? So like think of a dog's brain as like just empty land. As they get older, little buildings start getting built on it, and little by little all the real estate starts getting taken up. And part of what we got to do is make sure that all the buildings being built are positive and happy and lead to a more adaptive adult life.
Yes.
And but kind of like my statement earlier, there are parts of that real estate that haven't been developed yet, right? And so the cool part is when I deal with a rescue dog, we will see a lot of what I call unresolved puppy issues. So we'll see like, oh, they never learn patience, they never learn impulse control. So their brain is still kind of young. And sometimes there's room for socialization, like continued socialization. So I could take a 2-year-old rescue dog and still socialize them to an extent, and build their confidence and help them out. Now, the difference, what happens with puppies versus dogs who are past adolescent stage, is just like when we were teenagers, like prior to being 10, 11 years old, like everything was fun. We'd chase butterflies. Everything was funny. But when you become a teenager, negative emotions start developing in your brain. And it always makes me think about that movie Inside Out, that Disney movie, where like the little girl's emotions are developing in her brain.
Never seen
And
it.
never, so you got to see it. It's classic. There's 1 and 2, bro. But negative emotions start developing when we're adolescent. And that's all of a sudden now where we become threat conscious even more, or we become scared, or we become status seeking. And all of those factors can affect a nervous dog's brain for the worst, right?
Can I ask you 3 questions?
Yeah.
There was a dog trainer, and I cannot remember who this is. You may know who it is, but I read something once. They said true socialization happens until the dog's 4 months old. After 4 months, you never socialize. You just desensitize or generalize. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Of like, um, It's a unique way to think about it, is you're just desensitizing after 4 months, but you're truly socializing during those first 4 months. And it is because I love that analogy of the blank slate and building real estate, because that is so true. The hard part is that people are getting advice to not take their dog anywhere until the dog gets their last
Yes.
round of shots until they're 17 weeks old.
Oh, great point.
And you go, wait a second. If I'm only socializing until the dog's 4 months, but I'm keeping him at home until he's 4 months, what damage is that advice doing to dogs? That's my first question to you.
Dude, I don't know if we're going to keep this in the podcast or not, but I think it all makes sense. If I say common science and medical recommendations are don't socialize your dog in the most important period of socialization, and I create a fucked up antisocial dog because of it, and then I can give the dog pharmaceutical medications.
You're not taking this out. I will never do another podcast.
Holy shit. Holy shit, dude. You just fucking... I just put that together right now. Like, I've always had, obviously, big pharma and dogs. It's like a $1 billion industry just in dog medications, by the way. But holy crap, dude. Because that wasn't the norm. That wasn't the norm in the 80s. In the 80s, that wasn't the norm. Like, oh, your dog's going to, like, if every dog's going to die from parvo and rabies, they just fear monger the shit out of you so that you don't socialize your dog the 4 months because there's a later agenda. Holy fuck, my heart.
Well, even if there isn't some fucking dark wizard behind pulling the strings, it is still terrible advice.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. Now, I'm not telling you to take your dog to the local dog park, you know what I mean? Or to the disease-ridden neighbor's house.
Yeah.
But if you shelter your dog when you first get them, you will fuck them up. That is what I'm telling you.
Yes.
And then I have two other things that I want to bring up of what you talked about. One is we naturally lose the urge to want to make friends as we grow older, as do dogs, right? So it's like when I was younger, I wanted to meet everybody. Then you get into a clique. And then after that, I don't want to meet anybody else new.
Mm-hmm.
And your dog will go through this same period in life where everyone's like, oh, my 2.5-year-old dog doesn't want to play with other dogs anymore. Doesn't want to meet. That's not uncommon, right? It's not terribly uncommon. Another point I want to bring up is going, Brent, I'm 33 years old. I'm trying to learn Italian and I can't. Like, I really am struggling. But my 10-year-old nephew is picking up on his third language. Well, why is that, Brent? Why is it easier for them to do that at that age versus me at this point now? And then look at that from a dog's perspective in learning and socializing, not just commands, but socializing with the world. Explain that to me.
Well, the brain is a lot more malleable in plastic when we're younger, and as we get older, it's actually after the age, I think, of 25, it brings down, but by 35, our brain is not as malleable as we'd like it to be, right? So you got a couple more years, buddy. And the only reason I know this stuff, guys, is my dad is a doctor, and also I was listening to a bunch of podcasts my whole life. So this is all like Huberman, and this is all a bunch of other people smarter than me. But I'm really good at remembering knowledge. But when it comes to puppies, so what was the question again? Sorry, reframe the question.
Yeah, you're good.
Sorry.
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 All right, you got to keep this portion in the episode, and the reason why is when Brent and I make mistakes, which there are plentyfold. When I make a mistake, my Tourette's kicks in and I scream a negative word. Typically a word that is like bitch or C word or cock or something like that.
Yeah, you have Tourette's. You have mess up
Francesca
Tourette's.
says every day I have Tourette's, and it's not good because then I start to convince myself I have Tourette's. When Brent screws up, Brent will be talking about, oh, I'm sorry. And I lose it. So that is why we laugh when he says, I'm sorry. I had no idea Brent had this dog right there. One of the greatest compliments that any dog owner can ever get is, I didn't even know you had a dog. If you take your dog out in public and someone goes, I didn't know you had a dog, that means your dog is perfect.
My dogs were...
No, you're good. I was actually just explaining, I didn't know your dog was there. And one of the best compliments a dog owner could ever get is, I didn't even know you had a dog.
Yeah.
Like if you take your dog in public and it's just like, oh my God, you had a dog. That is an extraordinary compliment. But to go back, Brent, to my question is, um, why can a child learn a third language at 10 when I can at 33 much faster? And also putting that in perspective for a dog, why can a puppy make associations much faster or learn much faster than technically an adult dog can? And trying to tie that back into why the socialization period is so important to get as many good points in there instead of creating these mental scars as we call them. And I want to know the science behind it because I don't. I just know that it is, but I would like to learn of why that is.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know the science either, 100%, but I can definitely like I can make correlations, right? So like right now we're raising a kitten, right? And there's this like 7 week old, 6 week old kitten that was found at the mechanic shop, and the lady who takes care of my dogs, she's teaching me about how to raise a kitten. And she's like, no, I have to socialize him. I can't find him a home until, and I'm like wondering what socialization for a cat is like, because I know what it's like for a dog. And I'm noticing like she just wants me to hold him, and I'm just holding him. She goes, the cat right now is feral and we have to interact, like socialize him with things. So now we've socialized him with the dogs and we've socialized him with 10 different people. And it's all that stuff that we hear with puppies where it's just like, pass the puppy, and like people, your dog needs to know how to read human body language and maybe be exposed to other dogs. So because just kind of like your 10-year-old, niece or nephew, they're learning multiple languages simultaneously. I have to read human body language. I have to read dog body language. I have to know what the world is about. I got to be able to recognize patterns that are happening and make sense of them. And that's way easier to do when you're young, way easier to do. And so maybe that's where that 4 month, like max, like you have up until 16 weeks to socialize your dog, and everything else is desensitization. Right? Maybe that's where that statement comes from.
I like it. I like it, dude. So Brent, I'm a guy. I'm a client. I have a 3-month-old puppy who's a little bit on the skittish side. Uh, what can I do to socialize my dog? Like, what does that even entail?
How old's your puppy again?
He's about 3 months old. He's 13 weeks.
3 months old. Well, here's the cool thing, guys. The way we domesticated the wolf was food oriented. So how you feed your dog matters when they're really, really young. So if I had a really, really nervous puppy, I would want to make sure that I internally in my house, I have a schedule where he knows when breakfast time is. He gets hungry for breakfast. He'll take food from my hand, because all of those things will come in handy later when I start my socialization protocols. Food is a natural biological thing that all dogs need. So when I start exposing my dogs to new things, let's say I wanted to take my dog, it's not uncommon for your puppy at 10 weeks of age. If you put him in your front yard, your 10-week-old puppy's like, what the fuck? Like, why are we outside of my house? But something as simple as sitting on the porch and feeding that dog on the porch, right? Or sitting on in your yard and feeding your dog in your yard. All of these little things start kind of broadening the dog's, when you do in the exposure stages, all this stuff starts broadening the dog's safety circle or safety bubble, if you will, right? And if I can expand that bubble and get my dog to be more comfortable, to drop their guard, to be able to tune out stressors, that's going to be really, really important, right? Now, when I start exposing my dog to out in the real world, one of the biggest skills to teach a nervous dog is to teach them to check in with you, right? So I can let my dog sniff, but then I'm going to teach my dog to check back in with me. And then I'm going to teach my dog to stay with me. And then I'm going to let my dog sniff and explore. But I always want to teach my nervous dog, you can always come back home. I'm right here. So go explore and then come back home. Go explore and come back home. And what you're teaching the dog to do is you're actually teaching the dog a coping strategy of like, if I get nervous, I can go see what my dad's doing, or I can go see what my parents are doing. And they can always, just like, my nieces and nephews when they were little, I remember when they were always tiny, I'd be like, hi, I'm your Uncle Brent. And they'd always like hide behind my sister, and, but they always had a place to go for safety and security, but they were encouraged to go explore, right?
Yes.
Go say hi, go talk to them. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. No, on that note, guys, it's very important if you notice that your dog is showing any sort of timidness. You're going to come across people who go, "Oh, it's okay. I'm good with dogs." Or sometimes it's breed related. "Oh, I've had 4 pit bulls. It's okay." I totally get that and respect that. But until my dog is showing that he wants pet by you, please don't even offer to pet him. And going back a step further, you have to know when no training is better than bad training. You have to know when to pull the plug so that no damage is done. The more scars that you create, the worse it's going to be for you. So if you're in a position where like there's no winning here, abort mission and know
Yeah.
when to pull the plug, because it's not about fuck, I now have to spend 30 minutes here, because 30 minutes is not going to get you success. And you know, another thing Brent was saying is using food and then building that dog's world. You want to build it as much as you can, as fast as the dog is willing to go.
So yes, and I think this is a huge point to make, guys. Socialization is a process. It's not something, just like all training, it's not something you're going to do one rep of and then see huge significant changes, right? There's kind of a phased approach where we have to not just make sure that the experiences the dogs are having are positive, but in some situations, especially when we're desensitizing, that they are frequent. Right? That we have enough frequent repetitions where we can make sure the dog has a solid image in their head that like things are going to turn out well for me, right? Despite whatever, insecurities they might have.
Love it, dude. You know what's funny? Every Friday, and we're filming this on a Friday right now, we have a team meeting. Okay. And we go over random shit. And one question I asked the team today is I go, hey, what's the difference between counter conditioning and desensitizing? Okay. And I'm going to put Brent on the spot here because he'll be able to explain it in a way that is significantly nicer than the way that I explained it. So, Brent, can you break down the difference for our audience? And granted, you don't really need to understand these terms, guys, but I do think it's important to understand that there are two different things at play here, and sometimes they're at play simultaneous.
Yep. All right. So desensitization is the dog's ability for their nervous system to just kind of get used to the overall stimulus, right? So let's say there's a loud noise playing in the background. Does my dog have the ability to tune it out? And over time, does the amount of psychological stress reduce over time, right? With that thing. So in essence, desensitization is getting used to something being present and eventually just being able to tune it out and get used to it, right? Versus counter conditioning is where you're actually trying to change the emotional outcome or response, right? So usually when I teach counter conditioning, it's easy to take something that's neutral and associate it to be positive. It's a harder process to take something that is negative and make it positive
You
because,
skip the step.
well, exactly. You have to take something that is negative and try your best to desensitize them to make it neutral, right? Or try to at least get them to accept it and be able to be around that thing long enough, right? And then over time, we have to be able to take that neutral stimulus and make it positive, right? So it's like negative to neutral, then neutral to positive, right? And that's kind of the kind of, go ahead.
Yeah, that's where my three-pronged approach of expose, explore, and interact really come into play. It's this new thing that I've been trying to teach. Legendary.
So, did I answer those questions sufficiently? Like, what would you add? What would you change for the audience?
I would change not one single thing.
You're so
It was
nice.
literally perfect. And I do think people need to understand there's a difference between both. And you are most likely people are trying to skip that middle step of making it somewhat neutral,
Yeah.
not a
Oh,
huge event.
here's a really good piece of advice for the audience. Now, one of my friends, Lynn Bokey, who's a master at dog psychology, he worked for Caesar and trained a lot of Caesar's dogs for many years. But one thing he taught me that dogs' emotional associations they're going to pick up where they left off, right? So he said it's kind of like Netflix. You know how like when you turn off Netflix or you turn your TV off and you come back and Netflix is saved exactly where you left it, right? Where if I leave on a bad note, that's exactly where my dog's going to pick up on the next round of practice, right? So you hear this saying a lot in dog training where people say you want to leave on a positive note. Well, that's true, but it also has a lot to do with dogs are going to remember how they felt at the most recent memory of feelings, right? So it doesn't matter if the dog was having a good time the first 3/4 of the experience. If the last quarter of the experience the dog had a horrible time, that's what the dog is going to remember, right? But on
Mhm.
that same note, if the tables are turned and the dog was having a shitty time most of the time, but at the end opened up, relaxed, settled, then that's what the dog is most likely going to attach to on the next round and on the next round, right? And so the end goal is I always want to try and get to a good place before I finish rounds of socialization, desensitization, or counter conditioning.
Yeah, dude, we had a lesson today and Francesca I used for some help. We had a dog who's really afraid of other dogs. And, she's like, "Oh, he'll never be able to get near other dog, blah, blah, blah," right? The whole 9 yards. And, we're 35 minutes in, and now we are 4 or 5 feet away from Crunch, my puppy, and the lesson's going great. And this lady's scheduled for an hour, right? And it was perfect. It was flawless 35 minutes in. I told Francesca, "Hey, just take Crunch away." I took her fanny pack off the owner, told her dog to get into the car, let him eat the rest of the entire fanny pack. She goes, "Well, what are you doing?" I said, "We're done. Like, we've accomplished everything that we've needed today. Why do we need to do anything more? This was perfect. And the next time you come back, your dog's immediately going to go." And I love that Netflix analogy. That is like, and that is so brilliant, right? Because you're right. The next time this dog comes back to this spot, he's gonna be like, "Fuck yeah, dude, this place was great."
Mm-hmm.
Granted, if we would have kept pushing and trying, and dog trainers, myself included, are
Mm-hmm.
infamous for this. Like, I say one more time hundreds of times every day.
At least 10
That's
more times. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, but you're right. You wanna end and this comes back to something we started this conversation on, associations. Like, I want my dog to associate whatever it is that we're trying to do with positive, with something good, feeling good. And, yeah, you hit the nail right on the head, dude.
Yeah, man. So let's leave the people with like one more good bit of advice that could help them with getting their insecure, nervous dog to a better place. What do you think that could be, Vinny?
Yeah, I think it has nothing to do with the trigger. I think it has everything to do with building confidence in all other areas of the dog's life, because this also teaches them how to handle stress. And there's a lot of ways to build confidence, and I think we've talked about a few, just like playing and learning new skills helps build confidence. And a lot of people use place. A lot of trainers use place as a way to build confidence. And if you're not accustomed to what I mean by that, place doesn't just have to be go to your dog bed. Place could be different heights, different feelings of surfaces in new locations. You can teach your dog to be an urban agility master, right? Like jumping on all of these benches that have open wooden slats, or going to a playground and learning how to walk on steps that are metal with the circles in them, because it's weird and it does make your dog uncomfortable. But when they achieve that and they get a reward, they start to learn, oh, that little bit of stress that I felt, I can push through and achieve my reward. But I do think confidence should be on our forefront for all dogs, but most importantly for this particular type of behavior. So what are some other ideas you have for building confidence?
Yeah, no, I think play is one concept. Obedience, teaching dogs to change levels, like teaching dogs. It's kind of like just like kids, right? One thing I see when I saw my nieces and nephews grow up, the the better they were at physical things, like riding a bike or doing gymnastics or dance or like climbing trees or like all of these things, like the more confidence they had in themselves, right? So there's a huge correlation. Like the more we can get the dog to physically do with their body, and I'm not talking like necessarily on an exercise paradigm. I'm talking more of like, can you climb up this thing? Can you climb down this thing? Can you go under this thing? Can you go through this thing? And by the dog kind of practicing using their bodies in very successful ways, they start to feel like a real dog, if that makes sense. Like they feel like a real animal, and they feel fast and they feel agile and they feel strong. And I think the physical prowess is really important for confidence building, right? So, those of you guys who have young puppies, again, human nature is we want to nurture and coddle the dog to keep them where they're at, right? But that's the problem is when we want to protect something from stress, we prevent them from being exposed to the types of stress that help them grow, right? And so what we gotta think about is is, especially when I have really small dogs, getting them to do things that sometimes are against common dog training knowledge, right? Like people will say, like, don't let your dog jump. If I have a scared dog, fucking let him jump. Let him get on the couch. Let him get on the bed. Fucking feed him human food, but use it properly, like for training and teaching him recall and teaching him to go explore in that dark hallway. You know, like you can break some of the rules that the average dog trainer gives you early on. If I notice I have a young puppy, for the sake of building confidence. And one of the jokes are, sometimes we have to create the monster before we tame the monster.
Yeah, you don't want to squish them like a bug, and understand there are misdemeanors and felonies, and we want to focus on the big things, these little mistakes that they're making that are so easy to fix down the line. You should not sacrifice your end goal for these minor things, right? And also going back to the physical aspect, which is why I believe hiking is paramount for growing confident dogs. Number one, dogs are natural migrators. They love to move, but on a hike, they're jumping over sticks, they're going through water, they're jumping on rocks, they're climbing up trees, they're chasing squirrels, they're doing all the things that a dog was made and meant to do. And then we put them in this apartment complex or this, like little area. It's like, well, that is not where you're going to see your dog live his best life. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. And Brent, you were talking about all of these things that your nieces and nephews were doing, like riding a bike and, climbing trees,
gymnastics and all this stuff.
All these things. I also believe that there's a place for nervous dogs to grow in learning more than just 4 basic commands, right? So like we typically as dog trainers are not going to spend time at your house teaching things that, for $100 and whatever an hour for, like, oh, let's teach him how to touch or let's teach him how to. But I do think that if you're sitting at home and you have this nervous dog, well, your dog learning new skills, whatever that new skill is, even though it may not have much application in your life, is helping him figure out, how do I deal with the stress of learning something new? So take 15 minutes and try to teach him something new every week. And your dog will be better for it.
100%. Here, I'll leave you with you as the audience, not you, Vinny, but you can take this too.
I'll steal it. Don't worry.
Yeah, you'll steal it. So I refer to it as survival orientation versus achievement orientation. And so for the audience, what that means is survival orientation is constantly focused on the development of safety and security, right? And so like, you can even look at it in like society, right? There are certain types of ways of living, right? Like think about like if you grow up in a neighborhood where there's a lot of gang violence or there's a lot of thugs or there's a lot of crime. Those people who are doing the gang violence and the crime, those people are in survival orientation. In their mind, it's all primitive. It's all about territory. It's all about dominance. It's all about who's stronger and tough and like, what are you looking at, punk, right? Like that thug gangster mentality is survival orientation to the fullest, which is traditional survival. When we were pitted up against, enemies on a regular basis, like that came in really, really handy when we were primitive, in our evolution. But achievement orientation is where your brain is constantly fixated on, what can I do next? Oh, if I try harder, I'll keep doing it. And that's where like the dopamine system really comes in, right? Like think of, like before they invented fire, how many motherfuckers were rubbing sticks together and just got smoke? And they're like, oh, I got more smoke that time. Oh, I got even more smoke. And eventually fire. And they were like, whoa, but if it wasn't for that determination, they would have never invented fire or they would have never built the wheel, right? Like at some point, it's like these little micro wins lead up to these really huge achievements. And that's kind of how we have to look at confidence, is getting the brain addicted to achievement. And so obedience is one way, because we're teaching the dog, if you do this, you get that. So if you want food, do this for it. If you want freedom, do this for it. If you want affection, do this for it, right? And so if we can get the dog's brain constantly thinking, what do I got to do to get the stuff that I want? Now we have a dog who's thinking more proactively versus a dog who's in survival mode, who's only focused on trying to feel safe and secure and staying the same, right? That's all I got to say about that.
That's all I gotta say about that. I
That's
love that, but they're gonna have a hard time going in both modes at the same time. So technically, if the dog is trying to win, he's
Mhm.
not going to be nervous.
Yes.
So if we are, putting these dogs in a position where they're thinking like what Brent just talked about, all of the fear goes to the wayside.
Hmm.
The issue is if you put your dog in a position where they can no longer think about how do I win and they have to go back to how do I survive, the
Yeah.
fight or flight mechanism.
Yeah.
So you've got to make sure you're not putting your dog in a position. We use red, yellow, green.
Hmm.
So red circle, yellow circle, green circle. In the green circle, there's no stress, right?
Hmm.
Super easy for our dog to learn a new skill, but we don't want to stay in that forever. Then want to take that to the yellow circle where there's a little bit of stress, but my dog still can try to win and try to work through it. And then our red little circle is where our dog is completely shut down and there's no learning happening. There's only failure. We want to constantly be pushing our dog into this yellow because you'll shrink it. You'll
Hmm.
notice that your dog can handle more stress and more stress and more stress. Yeah, excellent job, dude. Excellent
Yeah.
job. One other thing we should talk about, Brent,
What's up?
is it, conditioning dogs to calm down when they are stressed.
Mm.
And can we do that in more ways than just in the bad stress when they are near their triggers?
Oh,
Once
100%.
again, we go back to the prerequisite of listening to this episode should be that you listen to episode 1 because that will help your dog immensely. Because most of these dogs that are nervous also have humans that work from home. They also have food in their bowls constantly. They're near their humans, like this, just free for all, right? It's
Yeah.
like we do need to be way more diligent about our daily routine with our dog. But then again, uh, can we teach these dogs how to calm down when they are feeling good stress? Like when my dog is playing ball, and as soon as I'm done playing ball, does that psychopath of a dog just keep running around the house? And is that actually hurting my dog in other areas of their life? Could I teach them how to calm down? And you can. And this is a game that Brent stole from,
J
uh,
Jack. I
and
stole it
then,
from J Jack.
yeah, and then I stole it from Brent. But this game is called Playing Enough, right? Or light switch game, whatever you want to call it. But essentially, you want to turn your dog on and you want to turn your dog off. And you want to do these with verbal cues so that you can use these verbal cues in other situations in the future. And so everyone has an on switch for their dog, right? Everybody has it. Like, do you want to go for a walk? And the dog fucking jams up,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
he's ready to
Yeah.
go. So
Amps
if
up.
you have a word that means we can go 0 to 10, technically, why can't I have a word that goes 10 to 0? It's significantly harder, but
Hmm.
why can't I do that? Right? So think of all of your phrases that get your dog juiced up. Daddy's home, mommy's home, who's here, who's that? Do you want to eat, want a treat, all that jazz. Okay, well, what is your word that means calm down? And everyone goes, place. No, 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 no. Place is a position. That is not a word to calm down. Something that I would recommend, and this is that game that we were talking about, is you should teach your dog how to turn off during play. And the easiest way to do this is to leave a leash on when you do play, because we need to be able to restrict our dog from doing anything. And we want to start the game just like a football game starts with a whistle and halftime ends with a whistle. We're going to have a word to start. You want to play? Or a phrase to start, get it, whatever ends up being. You get the dog all fucking jammed up. We're playing ball, we're playing tug, and don't play for 10 seconds. Like, satisfy this dog. Play for a few minutes, get this dog feeling really good. And then you stand straight up like a tree. You say the word enough. We put the ball down on the ground. The dog's going to go for the ball enough. He's going to try to get attention from you enough. And we use the leash to really limit what this dog can do. And we're trying to get him to go from 10, slowly back down 9, slowly back down 5 until he's relaxed. It's important that when you guys are doing these training sessions, there is no reward, right? So if the dog sits, you don't go yes and give him a treat because you're not teaching him a sit or a down or any position. What you're trying to teach him is to take a deep breath. And what you'll notice is most dogs, Brent, when you do this game, I mean, how long can it take some dogs to truly calm down when you get them really excited? Give me an
Minutes,
example.
like 5 minutes sometimes, 5 to 10 minutes well, being tethered to me, right? Where the dog can't run off and stimulate himself. Yeah.
Mhm. And then what do you see over a few weeks of practicing this exercise?
I would even just say over a few days. It doesn't even always have to be weeks. I would say within a few days, your dog starts learning to calm himself down faster and faster and faster, right? We start seeing that there is the dog's ability to calm himself down, and his nervous system's ability to calm himself down happens through the repetition of this game, right? And it's so funny because I always try to attach everything I do in dog training with when I was a kid. And I always thought about like games, right? All games help teach better focus, coordination. They all help teach patience and impulse control. All games that humans and dogs play teach that, right? And I always think of like kids who really suck at hide and go seek. Think of kids who really suck at it. Why do they suck at it? Because they can't stop laughing in the closet, right? They aren't patient enough to count all the way to 50 or whatever the number is you're supposed to count to before you start looking. So there's a lot of like little hidden lessons within games that are taught. And so a kid who can be quiet and hide and be silent and control their impulse and their emotion to want to laugh and chuckle, those kids are fucking slaying at hide and go seek. You know what I mean? But we always started in a place where we sucked at it. You know, we were just so excited that we were playing a game that we didn't learn to control and regulate our nervous systems. And so kind of like Vinny is saying is like, this is a game where we have to, built into the game are these regulators, are these mechanisms that help teach the dog to control their nervous system. And the basic principle here is if we don't teach our dogs how to regulate their high level positive emotions,
Bingo.
our dogs will never learn how to regulate their high level negative emotions, right? And it's all part of like this very comprehensive approach to dog training, guys. And that's one of the things we're trying to bring to you guys here in this podcast is kind of getting to see into some of the different dimensions of dog training that aren't necessarily pop culture and on the forefront of dog training at this time.
Yeah, because some of these aren't flashy either, right? Some of these you can't put on a video and get 1,000,000 views because it's sometimes dog training is really boring, guys.
Yeah,
It
facts.
really is.
Facts.
And if you really dive into that boring stuff and the stuff that does take time, it will benefit you greatly. And, one last note about this particular game, as Brent talked about, if you can't control your emotions when you're happy or when you're in good stress, or as Brent would call it, eustress, you're not going to be able to learn how to control yourself in de-stress, right? When we're in the bad state. And that will have a huge correlation to your dog of how quickly can they get back to calm. For me, one of the big things, and this same thing goes with reactive dogs too, is not always about does my dog get nervous or does my dog get reactive? My question is, how quickly can I get this dog back to neutral? And say my dog has this little flare up of nervousness, but he calms himself down almost immediately, is it even that big of a deal? Right? So at that point, if that's what you're really struggling with, you've won. Like you have won. But if your dog gets a little nervous and it ruins the next 2-3 hours of their life, that's why those games are so important.
Cool, man. Well, I really like this episode. I think this is going to be really insightful for some people. Guys, please leave us your comments. Also, if you guys are listening and haven't subscribed to wherever you're listening to, on Apple, or you listen on Spotify, or some of you guys are listening on YouTube too. So please make sure you guys subscribe and like, and leave us a comment, guys. We're always looking at our comments to see, what kind of episodes you guys are looking for. You guys can also reach out to me and Vinny on our individual Instagram pages. You guys can find Vinny at Say It Once Dog Training. You can find mine at Canis Behavior, and just message us and tell us some ideas you guys might have for the next couple episodes. But until next time, my name is Brent LaBrada, and that guy is Vinny Somma. And we want to thank you guys for listening to the Dog Owners Podcast. We'll see you guys later.